Hello everyone. It's 2023. I hope you're having a good new year so far, and I'm looking forward to an even better year for the rest of the 364 days. And I think with that, let's just get started. So, first one from Q's. Nodding is a great way to inspire agreement. Most people make the mistake of hiding or stifling their feelings in meetings or interactions. If you agree with something, show it. Well, I think it's pretty much complete. I don't really need to add anything over here. I'll move on. Remote, not distant. Perfectionism is a crucial barrier, but not the only one. Trying to anticipate every possible scenario and making sure all risks are resolved can bog your team down. The risks of inaction are greater than the risks of decisive action. Acting, acting quickly will give your company an edge. We have spoken about this multiple times. For example, perfectionism being a barrier. Um, uh, it's what was that saying? Perfectionism is an enemy of good enough, or something like that. Anyway, and waiting for information before acting. Again, we have discussed this many times before. That something like 40 to 70% of information is a good place to start. Anything less than that, you should probably wait for more information. More than 70%, you have waited long enough. You're already late. So um, trying to anticipate every possible scenario and making sure all risks are covered, it points to the 100% coverage of information, which is for most kind of decisions a complete waste of effort. So like it says, the risks of inaction are greater than the risks of decisive action. Some decisions can be reversed. You don't have to wait for perfect information before acting on it, and waiting for it, it's actually going to disadvantage your company. So let's move on. It's a supplemental highlight. So from Show Your Work. Show Your Work is a decent book. It's very short. It's very quick. I mean, it's like it hits straight to the point and it makes a case of why you should put yourself out there. So in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, said Zen monk Shunryu Suzuki. In the expert's mind, there are few. To me, it kind of takes me back to that same discussion about decisions. Um, an expert, not necessarily an expert with in the sense of having a lot of knowledge, but I think expert over here refers to the wisdom to act quickly, and in that case there are a few options, and they know it's it's very important to quick pick one and move ahead. As long as it's a decision that can be easily reversed. Again, if it's a decision that can't be reversed, there are against other strategies over there, but that's not the subject here. So in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. Somebody new to this, they may try to think of each and every possibility, each and every scenario, each and every counteraction, and of course, that's not getting them anywhere. That's the idea over here. We'll move on. The voltage effect. When we factor investments or mistakes from the past into our decision making about the future, it is almost guaranteed that we will fall into what is known as the sunk cost fallacy, an irrational commitment to money, time, or other resources already spent. Yeah, again, I think if you're familiar with the idea of sunk cost, it's pretty much the definition of sunk cost. Um, and yeah, if you're just going to, not even just, if one of the decisions, for you to continue doing something that you're doing, and if one of the factors in deciding that is your past investment, then you're going to fall into the sunk cost fallacy. And from like other again from a lot of books, voltage effect talks about sunk cost, but many other books as well. What was the last one that I read? I can't recall the title, but in that it was explicitly mentioned that rather than the value of the spent dollar, you should look at the value of the next dollar you're going to spend and appropriately allocate that to whatever project is the best one for your company. So you might have budgeted, like let's say, you might have budgeted $10,000 for some activity, and you've already spent about $8,000, and because you have another $2,000 in budget, you're looking to spend it. But if that, I mean, if you're going to look at the whole $10,000 and the value from that, you may fall into the sunk cost fallacy, and you might start thinking that, okay, we've already spent $8,000, we should go all the way. Again, our instincts of perfectionism kicks in over here. But if at that moment, if at that milestone, you can take a look and say that, okay, we have $2,000 left to spend. Is this, I mean, are we already at a good enough place in this project where we can stop spending and then decide that, okay, these $2,000 may be worth a lot more in some other project, for example. So yes, that's the idea. And these numbers are just numbers. You can think of it as a $10 million project and $2 million left to spend, or whatever amount you have left to spend. And the idea is that at every point you decide based on the future value of what you're going to spend, not on the past value. So yeah, let's move on. The Odyssey, it's a supplemental highlight. So I'm just going to read it. I don't think I remember Odyssey enough to comment on it. The Odyssey puts us into a world that is a peculiar mixture of the strange and the familiar. The tension between strangeness and familiarity is, in fact, the poem's central subject. Okay, it's not really from the Odyssey book. I think it's from the introduction of it. Um, I guess from the edition by Emily Wilson, I guess. Um, so I think this is pretty straightforward. A lot of stories, they succeed because of how they show something familiar and something strange in the good mixture. If a story is completely strange, you may never relate to it. And this, of course, this changes from individual to individual, because for each person the familiar is different. What is familiar to you may not be familiar, sorry, what is familiar to me may not be familiar to you. So in that case, what I might find familiar or what might appeal in certain work of art or movie or story, what might appeal to me in that may not be the same thing that appeals to you, even if the movie or the story appeals to you in the first place. So yeah, I think it's not unique to Odyssey, this thing that the peculiar mix of strange and the familiar. I think certain degree of familiarity is required in all stories for us to connect to it, and then certain degree of strangeness as well, because otherwise we know the story. What are we? Why are we going through that story if there is nothing strange about it? So let's move on. Measure what matters. First, said Edwin Locke, hard goals drive performance more effectively than easy goals. Second, specific hard goals produce a higher level of output than vaguely worded ones. So this book is about the value of OKR, and OKRs is supposed to be a little bit challenging, not very, not impossibly challenging, but healthy challenging, and they drive performance. If it's a very easy goal, sometimes there is no motivation. And again, I mean, we have spoken about motivation many times on this series as well. So again, it's kind of reiterating the same point. Hard goals, the things that drive motivation. Hard goals drive performance more effectively than easy goals. And again, the goals being specific, that helps more than just like excuse me, ambitious vague goals. It's kind of um, that may sound great, that okay, yeah, this sounds like an excellent goal, I want to work towards that. But if it's vague, if it's abstract, it's much more harder to connect to it, to find motivation to actually work on it. Yeah, I mean, compared to a specific goal. And we have again spoken about that in the context of especially getting things done. So yeah, let's move on. Choose possibility. I found that proximity to opportunity can benefit us even more than planning in many cases. When we only have a vague idea of our goal or how to achieve it, quickly getting ourselves closer to our dreams may be far more valuable than constructing a precise yet abstract plan from afar. Excuse me. So, to me, a lot of themes that we've already discussed today in earlier highlights, it kind of repeats over here. We just spoke about vagueness of goals and that, the abstractedness of goals compared to having highly specific goals. And in this case, it's not about having specific goals, but the author is making a point that even if you have vague goals, moving yourself to where the opportunity exists, I mean, physically, maybe virtually, virtually as in the electronic world, and not well, virtually is a very difficult word to connect to. So, yeah, proximity, moving yourself to where the opportunity exists, um, as in the physical location. For example, Paris of old, a lot of art was produced in Paris because that's where all the artists were, and that's what attracted more artists to come over there. So similarly, wherever the opportunity exists, moving yourself closer to that can help turn your abstract or vague idea of goals to specific ones, which actually um, motivates you to act on it. So to me, it's connected to a lot of different things you have spoken already. So let's go on. The talent war. We recommend building your talent profiles based on your top performance, but consider assessing your poor performance too. It's usually from the bad hires that we learn the most, as failure often teaches us more than success. The talent war is a book on. I mean, I'm mixed about that because the name is so strong and everything, but that's the point the book makes. It's really the game of well, okay, not game, but this whole activity of recruitment and hiring and finding people with talent. It's like a war. That's the point the book makes, and I do find it a little strong for my taste, but yeah, I mean, okay, it is what it is. And yeah, this highlight is pretty straightforward. I'm going to move on. Accelerate. How do we learn how to learn? How do I learn? How can I make it safe for others to learn? How can I learn from and with them? How do we together establish new behaviors and new ways of thinking that build new habits, that cultivate our new culture? And where do we start? These are a series of questions the author asks. I mean, it's quite clear that these are questions, right? And I to me it kind of refers to to the best of my memory, it kind of refers to the DevOps culture, to transforming your team into a high performing team. That's kind of mirrors what DevOps culture talks about nowadays. So yeah, it's these are the set of questions in that context where you ask yourself, how do I learn, how do I how do we as a team learn, and so on. So let's move on. A mind for numbers. One of the most problematic aspects of procrastination, constantly interrupting your focus to check your phone messages, emails, or other updates, is that it interferes with transfer. Students who interrupt their work constantly not only don't learn as deeply, but also aren't able to transfer what little they do learn as easily to other topics. So, transfer over here refers to um, learning one concept and transferring the idea or that the essence of that notion, what you're learning, to other ideas. So that's how learning works. You may be learning one thing, but that may actually open your doors to other concepts that you may already be aware of or that you may learn in future. And the interruptions, like the author's point over here is that the interruptions in this process will hurt the ability to transfer, because now, because of all the interruptions, you only have superficial knowledge. You not really look deep into the essence of what you're studying or what you're learning. So I guess the this notion of transfer is, of course, it's much more nuanced, and I don't really know where to start with it. So excuse me. So if you're really interested about this, this is a good book to study for how we learn. So with that, I think I'm just going to move on, and that's really the end of highlights today. And since I'm running a little short on time, I'm just going to skip this for today. That means we are at the end of the video. Once again, have a great new year. I'm looking forward to more and more recordings. I will probably not have a lot of recordings this month. I'm traveling later, and so this week I'm looking forward to the recordings. But starting next week, I'm not sure if I'll be putting recordings, or if I can figure out a way to do this. Like, I mean, I have this setup over here and everything. Let's see. All right. So with that, once again, have a happy new year, and bye.